Coogs House. The trenches are really, really important. And a new lineman just entered the portal that Houston has to go get.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. And if you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below, what is the best style of French fry? Curly, straight, a little softer, a little crispier, crinkle, waffle, whatever you got. Tell us in the comments down below. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but more on that a little bit later. We got a fun show today with a little bit of bouncing all over the news cycle. It's going to feel a little bit hodgepodgey, but a bunch of different good things happening for the Houston Cougars. Or maybe I'm just a little optimistic about them. We shall see. Now, full disclosure, I've recorded this episode once already. The sound did not work. The video could not play me talking. I don't know what the deal is, so we're going to try this one more time. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see if it works or not. So apologies if I feel like I talk about something I've already said. It might have been in the first version of this. This is weird to do this thing twice back to back like that. I'll just say that up front. The third segment, I'm going to talk someday about Jamal Shed continuing to impress at the NBA Combine. I'm going to probably talk about that every day because I cannot get enough talking about Jamal. In the second segment, I'm going to talk some about other positive news stories for Houston that are going on right there. At least one of them is clearly positive. One of them I think is positive, and I'll explain why. But first and foremost, the news is that big Myron Warren is in the transfer portal out of Texas State. The 6'2", 275-pound defensive tackle enters the transfer portal out of Texas State, originally from Louisiana, small town in Louisiana, and it actually committed to Texas out of high school, went to Texas, was not going to get to play at Texas, and went to Texas State. Now, why I wasn't going to play at Texas could be any number of reasons. It is Texas. There are politics involved and all of that. They also had some future pros in the line, maybe wanted to play faster or whatever. One thing seems very clear. Even though he's from Louisiana, he clearly wanted to play his college football in the state of Texas. He went to UT. He had TCU high on his list. He went to Texas State afterwards. Why not Houston next, right? This guy's a really, really impactful player, a 4-star out of high school, a 93 overall recruit. For paying attention to things like recruit rankings, impressive big man athlete. He was actually a top 15 ranked edge rusher out of high school on 24/7. And for what it's worth now, he's grown into being an interior defensive lineman. He's presently looking more like 6'2", 275. And I think you still see aspects of his edge play in his bend, in his body lean. I describe it as like shin angles, right? The way he's getting it out of his like the low leverage kind of situations. But you also see the 275 pounds, the way he moves around interior offensive linemen. Now, I know with guys like AJ Holmes and Keith Cooper and stuff like that, you probably think of getting like greedy, right? To be like, oh, I want more defensive linemen. You might say efforts and resources might be better spent elsewhere, right? Other positions might need more help or whatever. I'm actually getting pretty confident in the secondary as we get closer to the season. We're still a long ways away, so who knows where I'll be by the time the season starts. But I do think what's interesting in looking at the defensive line is you can never have enough. Now, on the offensive side of the football, you really kind of want 5 guys to play the whole game, the whole season. You want 5 guys to work together as a fist, right, strong, and be working together and making calls and making reads and calling out what to see on the defense and yada yada. Right, you want all that continuity on the offensive line to the best you can. That's why you don't see a whole lot of like platoon subbing on one side or the other, the offensive line in college football. That's not typically successful. Conversely, on defense, you want burst, you want energy, you want speed, you want fresh legs all the time. You want to be able to rotate guys like every couple of plays if you can, right? We saw at times last season, Houston flat ran out of gas. They didn't have enough muster to get into third gear or whatever. And adding defensive linemen will continue to add fresh legs, guys that can really play, adding fresh legs to that pass rush and things like that. I think Myron Warren's a great way to add to the interior depth of the defensive line with a guy that can really play. Again, once he gets his big hands on guys, he moves them around. He's agile, he's quick, he's shifty. I can't believe he's in the transfer portal. It is weird he's hitting it. He entered on May 13th, Monday. But I also would point out that, like, guys are graduating, guys are moving on. He's got about 2 years left. Looks like, if I'm counting things right. And Houston, Coach Willie Fritz, they've got to go get this guy to campus, get this guy to look around, see what you can do to bring him home. Not his home, but Houston home. Bring him home. Now, as far as other positional needs I would look at go as the transfer portal is thinning out, I would start to look at, obviously, every offensive lineman you can get as a bonus. I would look at, can we find any of those more of those tweener type of athletes, the tight end, fullback, H-back type guys? I think Emmanuel Gavi and Kevin Barbe and this offense are going to want to use those a lot. And I would imagine those are the kinds of things you've got to go see, got to go try, right? So I know we're cutting the first segment a little bit short. This whole wonky thing where I've done the episode and it didn't really count. Now we're doing it again. I don't know if that meant I went through my points more clearly or quickly or what happened. But before we go too far and get moving too quickly, I should point out, part of the reason I'm so tired throughout this podcast, it's not just that it's my second time doing it. It's not just this late at night. It's also that my wife and I are buying a house, right? We're looking into buying a house. Got some feelers out and offers out and kind of starting that whole process. And to start that process, you got to make sure your finances are in order, right? That's just something you got to do. And I can't recommend a better place to do that than our buddies over at Yahoo Finance, because let's just get right to the point. You want to grow your portfolio and deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off student debts, your mortgage, or get a mortgage like we are, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? With Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or are looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you a little bit of extra tools, and all the tools and data that you need are in one place. They are the number one finance destination, providing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective it sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures that you have the insights to look at your wealth in its entirety. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right, in the second segment, I want to talk about a couple different news stories about the Houston Cougars that are out there these days, one of which is clearly positive, and that is the CBS Sports did a full ranking of all the head coaches at Power 4 schools. In that ranking, Houston's Willie Fritz came in at 26th. Now, they did a longer write-up on guys in the top 25, but 26th for one Willie Fritz. Now, this is the part where it's going to be interesting to remember what I did say and what I didn't say on which version of this episode. But Willie Fritz enters this as 26th overall after having never coached a game. At the time of you're listening to this, he has not coached a game in the Power 4, and he's already 26th. That's ahead of Fleck. That's ahead of Elko that's got signed at A&M, that's ahead of Mac Brown at North Carolina, that's ahead of all coaches up and down. The majority of coaches in the top in the Power 5 conferences, they got, before he's even coached a game, Willie Fritz is number 26. Now, I think, as the write-up said, that's entirely because of the winning culture he's built in a number of different places, obviously. And I think it also speaks to the quality of the hire. We're all really excited about what he brings. We're excited about the direction of the program. And I got to admit, we're excited about like 2026. 2024 is going to be fun. It's football. But 2026 is when, okay, he's got some time under his belt. What does the program look like then? And frankly, I don't mean this in a way that's disparaging or hateful or anything like that. I certainly don't mean it like that. I should guess is, intent, impact probably more important, but whatever, right? But Willie Fritz can't plan a long rebuild, and not just because we're impatient, right? As an older head coach, this rebuild is going to take like 3 or 4 years maximum, because he can't guarantee he's the coach much longer than that. I don't mean to force anyone into retirement, but he can't be asking for more time in 4 or 5 years, because you question how much time he's got left to coach, right? So, needless to say, I think that seeing the positive press around Willie Fritz is important. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that press goes over the course of the season. I've said I was more optimistic than Brian Smith was yesterday. I don't know how 2024 is going to go. I'm positive about 2025 and 26 being big time steps, leaps, bounds in the right direction. 2024, you got to sometimes back car up to go straight. Got to back car up, change directions. I think that's kind of what you're looking at out of that one. That was one story, anyway, was that people are respecting what Willie Fritz brings to the table. The second thing I wanted to bring up, the second story I wanted to bring up, and we maybe do more newsy kinds of things on Fridays or Fridays at the end of the week, or Mondays to start the week after the weekend or something like that, as the off season for football and basketball go on. We'll see how this goes. Tell me if you like it down below. But the second news story I want to talk about was from Heartland College Sports. I don't know if you guys read Heartland. They do national stuff. They do a really good job of following the Big 12 in Houston for a national brand, I feel like. And Heartland put out a ranking the Big 12 schools as winners and losers based on the transfer portal. And Houston was declared very clearly, vividly, no questions asked, a loser, right? I think this is going to be positive in a second, to work with me. But the reason they were losers is because they lost 21 guys to the transfer portal. And at the time of the article, only pulled in 7. We're higher than that now, but it's still a pretty distinct difference between how many guys have left and how many guys showed up, right? And they were saying, for other schools they deemed losers, that they lost good players and brought back mediocre players. Some schools lost their best player and brought back some role player kind of, or whatever, right? Houston lost 21 players and brought in 7. But in this description, the write-up, the whatever, there was not a lot of discussion about the quality of guys in versus the quality of guys out. It was just all about how distinctly different those numbers are. Well, you get 11 players on the field. And frankly, if the quality is not worth mentioning in that things like that, I wonder if they're almost saying that, truthfully, Marquise Shoulders is as good a receiver as when they lost. He's just one guy replacing several, or how that goes as you look at like replacing all the defensive linemen you lost, but then you brought in Keith Cooper. So like, okay, from a quality perspective, you're actually okay, but like on a quantity, you're not, right? Like, is the criticism just the quantity of guys that have left versus guys that have come in to the program? Because the quality is not that different. We'll see, obviously, on the football field this weekend, or this season. Sorry, again, second to the podcast, kind of tired. But I do think that that's worth mentioning, is they didn't distinctly point out any differences in quality of guys, right? And I think that's a good thing. Or at least I'm telling myself I think that that's a good thing. So we'll talk we'll talk more about that as the season and summer go on. Maybe we'll start to look at who difference makers will be within each of those position groups and things like that. I like to get through that as the summer rolls around, to make sure we're focused on like getting ready for the upcoming season and what's going to be happening and so on. Now, Houston's in the news a lot. We're breaking it down. Like I said, if you want to find some way to fit in a segment of breaking down the news on Houston, put in the comments down below. We'll see how many people have that kind of an idea. The third and final segment, though, I want to talk some and brag some on Jamal. I could brag some on Jamal a lot. I could do it every day. And frankly, I'm excited to get to do it 82 times a year as he plays in the NBA one day and do all of that as well. But if you are looking to make your day a little bit better, like I do when I talk about Jamal Shed, you could do it to FanDuel, because FanDuel is peaking at the winner take all moment in both the NBA and NHL right now. FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, parlays, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, so again, this is all a little wonky because of redoing the episode and doing all of that, but I didn't want to get out of here without taking a chance or taking a moment to brag on one Jamal Shed. Jamal, in there, so at the NBA Combine, we mentioned they do combine drills and scrimmages every day. In the second scrimmage, Jamal Shed's team fell to 0-2. They lost 90-83. They lost by 7 points. And I think that's important to mention because even though they fell 90-83 by 7 points, Jamal Shed in that game had 13 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds, and was plus 10 in a 7-point loss. That means in the less than 23 minutes he was in the game, less than 23 minutes, his team won those minutes by 10 points. That also means that in the other 17 minutes of the game, they lost those minutes by 17 points without him on the floor to ultimately balance out and lose the game by 7. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what you'd call difficult to do. That's how bad that is, to be down a point a minute without the Jamal Shead on the floor. That's not good. That's not good. And this is the same game as, he's got Trey Alexander on his own team. But on the other team, he's got Mark Sears, AJ Johnson, Bronny James. This is not like, cream puffs of insert, small school over the winter holidays, right? This is guys that are pretty highly ranked point guard prospects. And he did it to all of them. I think Jamal Shed has done a number of things to really improve his stock over the course of the combine. And I mentioned in yesterday's episode, and one thing I want to address before hanging it up is that in yesterday's episode, I said I really wanted to be a first-round draft pick. And I got a lot of commentary about, like, why does that matter? What's the big deal? The fit's the more important part, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay? A couple things I would agree with, right, is fit's important, and I think at the right place, after watching guys like Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Jalen Brunson, Kyrie Irving, guys under 6'3", have long careers in the NBA. I feel confident saying Jamal Shead will be playing in the NBA 10 years from now. I think he'll be in the league for a long time. But I think it behooves him to be a first-round draft pick because I want the best for Jamal. And while I know that some teams do better fits than others, the way the NBA draft works, the lottery gets a lot of money. The first round gets a contract. The second round gets a G League and camp invite. Right? And so the difference between like the 27th pick and the 33rd pick is more than just 6 spots. That first versus second round line and whether or not a team's willing to say, yeah, we got you, we'll pay for you, or whatever, is distinctly different. And for Jamal's sake, have been pushing and hoping to see him in that first round. Obviously things change. Obviously things a little bit wonky. And I think even if he just makes the G League and summer camp roster, he'll be in the NBA for a long time. Right. But I don't know. I worry about how that goes otherwise. And so we'll see how all that finishes up, all that balances out each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. Hopefully, we're only recording once a day on those kinds of things, unless we're giving you 2 episodes. Recording twice to give out 1 episode stinks. It's a lot of effort for one. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of a news round table kind of feel. If you got questions, comments, suggestions, concerns, let us know in the comments. If you want to join the conversation, remember to tell us what kind of fry you think is best. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team, our Houston Cougars, each and every day. Go Cougs.